All right, so are you ready for this? We're going to deep dive into some advice for men about how to spot if a woman's using them. We're going to be looking at this YouTube video by Coach Lucky. It's got a pretty dramatic title. If you notice these 5 things in a woman, sorry, sir, she is just using. To help us kind of look at all this from different angles, we have our expert in relationships joining us today.
It's definitely a hot topic.
Oh, yeah, for sure. So just to give you a taste of Coach Lucky's style, he tells this story about a guy who's financially supporting his girlfriend, and then she ends up totally draining his Binance account, which is a lot of money for some fake study abroad program, and then vanishes, gone.
Wow.
Yeah, so pretty intense stuff. Ready to unpack it?
Absolutely. Let's dive in.
Okay, so the first big red flag from Coach Lucky is this lack of reciprocity. He's basically saying if you're always the one giving money, attention, affection, and you're not getting that same effort back, that's a big warning sign. He gives the example of always being the one to reach out or plan dates. What do you think?
Well, reciprocity is so important in any healthy relationship. There's no doubt about that. Relationships need that balance.
Yeah.
Both partners contributing and feeling valued. But before anyone jumps to conclusions, it's important to look at the whole picture. Think about it. If you're always the one texting first or making plans, maybe try taking a step back for a week or two and see what happens. See if your partner will step up and starts reaching out. It's a simple way to sort of test how much effort they're willing to put in.
Oh, that's a really good tip. It's like a little experiment.
Exactly. And sometimes it's not even about bad intentions or anything. It could just be that you communicate differently or they just don't realize they're not doing enough.
Yeah, Coach Lucky doesn't really get into that, does he?
No, his style is very black and white, but real relationships are just way more complicated.
All right, on to red flag number 2, absence of emotional support. Coach Lucky paints this picture of when you're feeling down or needing someone to listen to you and your partner just isn't there for you emotionally. He really makes it sound pretty simple.
Well, yeah, emotional support is super important in a good relationship. It's so important to feel seen and heard and supported by your partner. But again, context is everything. So you have to think, does your partner support you in other ways? Maybe they're not good with words, but they're always there to help you out when you're stressed. Or maybe they're going through something themselves that makes it hard for them to be emotionally available right now. You have to look beyond just those first impressions and assumptions.
It's like he assumes if they don't react in a certain way, they just don't care.
Right. And that's rarely true. I think a lot of this comes down to communication. Have you actually told your partner what kind of support you need? Do they know how to be there for you in the best way? Those are the things that can really help build a more supportive dynamic.
Okay, let's go to red flag number 3, and this one's a little heavier. It's financial exploitation. Coach Lucky's talking about women who only get in touch when they need money, and they use guilt trips and manipulation to get it. This is where he tells that crazy story about the Binance account getting drained, right?
Yeah, that story is definitely a scary one. Financial abuse is a serious problem, and it's important to be aware of it. But we have to remember, not every time someone asks for money, it's automatically exploitation. The important thing is to look for patterns. Is your partner always asking for money and not taking responsibility? Are they being secretive about their finances? Do you feel pressured or manipulated to give more than you can? Those are the things to watch out for.
So it's not necessarily bad to ever help your partner financially. It's about making sure it feels healthy and equal.
Exactly. And open communication is key. Talk about money goals and boundaries. Make sure you're both on the same page about how money works in your relationship.
Yeah, it sounds like Coach Lucky just wants you to run at the first sign of trouble. But you're saying there's often more to the story.
Absolutely. Relationships are rarely that simple.
Okay, so red flag number 4 is lack of effort in the relationship. Coach Lucky compares a relationship to a partnership, like you're both building something together and you both need to be contributing. He says if you're always the one initiating things, compromising or going the extra mile, that's a sign you're being taken advantage of.
Yeah, that idea of balance is spot on. You should both feel like you're equally invested and putting in effort. But here's the thing, effort can look different to different people. Some people are all about grand gestures and fancy dates. Other people show effort through those small acts of kindness every day, like cooking dinner, doing chores, giving you encouraging words. So it's really about asking yourself, how does my partner show love and commitment? And does that match what I need and expect?
That makes a lot of sense. It's not always about keeping score, but more about making sure you both feel appreciated and supported in the right ways for you.
Exactly. And if you're feeling like you're the one putting in more effort, talk to your partner about it. You don't have to be accusatory or anything. Just tell them how you're feeling and what you need from them to feel more balanced.
This is already so much more helpful than Coach Lucky's dumper advice.
It's all about finding solutions, not just blaming each other.
Right. Okay, last one. Red flag number 5. Disregarding your needs and boundaries. Coach Lucky says if a woman constantly puts her needs before yours, pressures you to do things you're not okay with, or ignores your boundaries, it's a sign she's not really invested in the relationship. For example, he talks about a woman who keeps asking for more and more money, even though her partner's told her he can't afford it. What do you think about this one?
While respecting each other's needs and boundaries. Emotional, physical, financial is super important in a good relationship. It's essential. But sometimes those boundaries get crossed, not because someone's trying to hurt you, but because they just don't get it. So ask yourself, have you clearly communicated your boundaries? Have you explained why certain behaviors are unacceptable? If not, that's the first step. It's not about assuming your partner is trying to be bad. It's about giving them a chance to understand and respect your needs.
So Coach Lucky is basically assuming everyone's a perfect communicator and can read minds.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But the truth is, communicating well takes practice and effort from both people.
So we've gone through Coach Lucky's 5 big red flags, and it sounds like you're saying some of what he says is true, but he oversimplifies things and doesn't consider all the nuances of real relationships.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. We have to remember that every relationship is different. There's no one way to tell if someone's using you.
Right, it's not about labeling people, it's about figuring out if the relationship is actually healthy and working well.
Exactly. And that's what we'll be talking about in part 2. We'll look at healthier ways to communicate, set boundaries, and work through conflicts in relationships. Stay tuned.
So welcome back to our deep dive into all these relationship red flags. You know, in the first part, we went through those 5 warning signs from Coach Lucky's video. And thankfully, we have our expert here who gave us some great advice on healthier ways to think about relationships.
Yeah, we talked about how important it is to look at the whole situation, the context, and not just jump to conclusions based on a few things you see.
Right. And I thought it was really interesting how Coach Lucky was so focused on just reacting to these red flags, but he barely talked about how important communication is.
Yeah, it's like he's telling people to run away at the first sign of trouble without even trying to work things out.
Exactly. So let's talk about healthier ways to approach relationships. Like if someone's listening and they're thinking, whoa, Coach Lucky's talking about me, where should they even start?
Okay, well, before they jump to conclusions or do anything drastic, the first thing is to take a step back and think about what they need and what's important to them. Like, what are their deal breakers in a relationship? What do they expect when it comes to communication? Money, affection. Once they really know what they want and need, they can look at the relationship more objectively.
I think a lot of people skip that part. They get so caught up in what the other person's doing or not doing that they forget to check in with themselves first.
It's so easy to get caught up in what's happening around you. But taking time to think about yourself is crucial. It's about giving yourself the power to make decisions based on your own values, not just reacting to someone else's behavior.
Okay, so let's say you've done some soul searching and you're noticing some issues in your relationship. How do you even begin to talk about those things with your partner? Coach Lucky makes communication sound so easy, but in real life, it's so hard, especially when it's a sensitive topic.
He makes it sound like you just say what's on your mind and everything's magically fixed.
Mm-hmm.
But communicating well is a skill. It takes practice and patience. It's not just about saying what you need. It's also about really listening to your partner and trying to see things from their perspective.
Yeah, it's not just one person talking. It's about creating a space where both people feel safe and heard.
Exactly. And it's not always easy,
Mm-hmm.
especially when you're both emotional. But there are things you can do to communicate better in your relationship.
Like what? Give us some tips.
Well, first, pick the right time and place to have these talks. Don't try to bring up something serious when you're both stressed or tired. Find a time when you can both be fully present and focus on each other.
Put those phones away.
Oh yeah, definitely. Get rid of distractions so you can really listen to each other. And when you're talking about your concerns, try to use I statements instead of you statements. So instead of saying, you never listen to me, try saying, I feel unheard when.
Oh, that's a good one. I definitely need to work on that.
We all do. It's a natural thing to do. But I statements can help to calm things down because you're focusing on your own feelings, not blaming your partner.
So you're taking ownership of your feelings instead of putting them on the other person.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, communication isn't just talking, it's also listening. Really try to understand your partner's point of view, even if you don't agree with them. Ask questions to make sure you understand. Repeat back what they've said to make sure you're both on the same page. Listening is a powerful way to connect with someone and understand them.
This all makes sense, but what if you've tried to communicate and you're still not getting anywhere? What if you're putting in all this effort and nothing's changing?
At that point, you have to ask yourself if the relationship is really good for you. Are you happy? Do you feel respected and valued? Are your needs being met? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to think about whether the relationship is worth continuing.
Coach Lucky would probably say break up right away, wouldn't he?
He definitely seems to prefer a more extreme approach. But I think we have to remember that relationships take work. You need to be willing to put in effort, be patient, and grow together.
So communication is super important, but are there other things people should be thinking about when they're looking at their relationships? Coach Lucky is all about red flags, but there's got to be more to it than that, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One big thing is compatibility, especially when it comes to values. Coach Lucky seems to think everyone wants the same things in a relationship, but that's just not true.
It's like he has this one perfect model for what a relationship should look like.
Right. But in the real world, what makes a good relationship is different for everyone. It depends on your values and what you believe in. For example, some people really value independence and freedom in their relationships, while others want to be really close and connected.
And neither of those is right or wrong. It's about finding someone who wants the same things you do.
Exactly. The key is to find someone who shares your core values and who wants to build a relationship that works for both of you. So how do you know if you're truly compatible with someone? Well, it takes time and honest communication. Pay attention to how they talk about their priorities, their beliefs, their goals. Do those things line up with yours? Do you feel like you're on the same page when it comes to the big things in life?
This is making me think about past relationships where I ignored those differences in values. I thought I could change the person or things would just work out magically.
It's a common mistake. We all do it. We can get so caught up in the excitement of a new relationship that we ignore those big differences.
And then later on, those differences cause huge problems.
Exactly. So it's important to really think about those deeper levels of compatibility early on.
Okay, so shared values are important. What else?
Trust is another huge part of a good relationship. Coach Lucky talks about betrayal, but he doesn't really talk about how to build trust.
It's like he thinks you either trust someone or you don't, but it's something you have to work on.
Right. Trust is earned by being consistent, communicating openly, and letting yourself be vulnerable with each other.
And it takes time, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen overnight. It's built through all the experiences you have together, good and bad.
Speaking of bad times, Coach Lucky kind of makes it sound like if you're going through a rough patch, the relationship's over. But that's just not how it works, is it?
No, not at all. Every relationship will go through tough times. That's just life. It's how you deal with those challenges together that really matters. Can you support each other? Communicate well. Find solutions together. Those are the signs of a strong relationship that can last.
That reminds me of that saying, the couples that stay together aren't the ones who never fight. They're the ones who know how to fight well.
That's perfect. Conflict is going to happen. It's how you handle it that decides if the relationship is healthy and can go the distance.
So we've talked about shared values, trust, and being able to go through hard times together. Anything else people should keep in mind?
Well, this might seem obvious, but attraction and affection are important too. Coach Lucky is all about the negative stuff, but he doesn't really acknowledge how important positive feelings are in a relationship.
He's all about what's going wrong, not what's going right.
Exactly. But a strong relationship needs love, affection, and genuinely enjoying being around each other. Do you feel that spark? Do you look forward to spending time together? Do you make each other laugh? Those are all important signs of a good connection.
He totally skips over all that. It's almost like he thinks love doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's like he sees relationships as just a business deal.
Which is a pretty depressing way to think about it.
It really is. And it ignores all the beautiful and complicated emotions that make a truly loving and fulfilling relationship.
Wow, this has been so eye-opening. I feel like I've learned so much, not just about red flags, but about what really matters in a relationship.
Same here. It's been great.
And I hope our listeners are feeling the same way. We've talked about communication, values, trust, attraction. But there's one more really important thing we need to talk about.
Okay, what is it? I'm intrigued.
Well, it's something Coach Lucky doesn't even mention. But it's absolutely crucial for a healthy and strong relationship. And that's self-awareness.
Oh, I love that.
I knew you would. Let's get into that in part 3 of our deep dive. Stay tuned. Welcome back to the final part of our deep dive into relationship red flags. We've been talking about this advice from Coach Lucky, going through those 5 warning signs, and luckily our expert has been here giving us some awesome insights into healthier ways to approach relationships.
Yeah, it's been a super interesting talk for sure.
Mhm.
It's crazy how much we can learn when we look past those first impressions and really get into how complex relationships are.
Totally. And, as we've been talking, I've realized how much Coach Lucky's advice is all about the other person, like what they're doing wrong, how they might be using you, but he doesn't really talk about looking at yourself and your own pattern.
That's a great point, and it brings us to something really important,
Yeah.
that Coach Lucky totally misses self-awareness.
Okay, I knew you were going to say that. It makes so much sense. How can you even start to build a good relationship if you don't understand yourself?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Self-awareness is like the foundation. It's the basis for everything. Good communication, healthy boundaries, working through arguments. It's about knowing what you need, what your triggers are, your attachment style, how you communicate, your strengths and weaknesses.
This reminds me of that saying, wherever you go, there you are. It's like you can't run from your own baggage, so you might as well just deal with it.
I love that, and it's so true. We all bring our past experiences, our hurts, our insecurities into our relationships. And if we're not aware of those things, they can mess things up without us even realizing it.
Okay, so how do we even start to get more self-aware? It sounds kind of hard.
It's definitely a journey, not a quick fix, but you can start by paying attention to your thoughts, feelings, and how you react in different situations. Notice how you handle stress, arguments, intimacy, what makes you upset, what pushes your buttons.
So it's about being more aware of what's going on inside you.
Right. And another great way to become more self-aware is journaling. Take some time to write down your thoughts and feelings. It can help you process things, see patterns, and understand yourself better.
I've tried journaling before, but I always get stuck. Any tips?
One thing that helps is to have a specific topic to write about. Like, you could write about a fight you had with your partner. What made you upset? How did you react? What could you have done differently? Or you could write about what you need and want in a relationship. What's important to you? What are your deal breakers?
That's a good idea. It's like giving your mind a little push to uncover those deeper things.
Exactly. And another powerful tool is feedback from people you trust. Ask your close friends or family how they see you. What are your strengths? What are your blind spots?
That could be scary, but also really helpful. Sometimes we need other people to help us see ourselves more clearly.
That's true. And of course, therapy or counseling can be an amazing way to develop self-awareness. A good therapist can help you look at your past, identify unhealthy patterns, and learn healthier ways to cope.
It's like having a personal trainer for your emotional well-being.
I like that.
So we've covered self-awareness, communication, shared values, trust, attraction. I feel like we've gone through so much in this deep dive. Any final thoughts?
I think the biggest takeaway is that healthy relationships are built on self-awareness, respecting each other, communicating openly, and being willing to grow and change, both as individuals and as a couple.
That's beautiful. It's not about finding the perfect person. It's about being the best version of yourself and finding someone who complements and supports your journey.
So well said.
This has been such an insightful and helpful conversation. I feel like I've learned so much, and I hope our listeners do too. Thank you so much for being here today.
It was my pleasure.
And that wraps up this deep dive into relationship red flags. We hope you got a lot out of it. Remember, you're the expert on your own life and your own relationships. Trust your gut, talk openly, and never stop learning and growing. Thanks for joining us.